Honored guests, please take your seats. Our program is about to begin. Honored guests, please take your seats. Our program will begin momentarily. desk, please. Honored guests, welcome and thank you for joining us to the Four Freedoms Awards.
The first is freedom of speech and expression everywhere in the world. The second is freedom of every person to worship God in his own way everywhere in the world. The third is freedom from want, which translated into world terms means economic understandings which will secure to every nation a healthy, peacetime life for its inhabitants everywhere in the world. The fourth is freedom from fear, which translated into world terms means a worldwide reduction of armaments to such a point and in such a thorough fashion that no nation will be in a position to commit an act of physical aggression against any neighbor anywhere in the world.
Honored guests, please welcome the chair of the Roosevelt Institute, Anna Eleanor Roosevelt.
Good morning. Good morning and welcome to the 2025 Franklin D. Roosevelt Four Freedoms Awards. I am a granddaughter of Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt, and I am honored to currently serve as chair of the board of the Roosevelt Institute. We just heard my grandfather's distinctive voice, a voice that rallied millions of people who were desperate, scared, and defeated. Freedom of speech and expression, freedom of worship, freedom from want, freedom from fear are the essential freedoms my grandfather laid out 84 years ago to guide succeeding generations in defending and developing the way of living that democracy delivers. Today marks the 43rd year we have held this ceremony which honors these freedoms and the people who fight to make them reality everywhere in the world. Each year when we hold this ceremony, someone inevitably says, we need these freedoms now more than ever. Is this the year beyond which these freedoms will be irrelevant, will be betrayed, will be labeled treason or suffocated beyond recognition? I'm sure I'm not alone, but every day my heart aches. My brain hurts. My skin crawls. My eyes blur and then glaze over. And then that voice comes to my ear in ringing tones. That voice that came from a body throbbing with pain as he stood in the well of the House of Representatives, gripping the lectern just to stay upright while he delivered his remarks. His message was of dire importance. We, as a people, had to understand the promise of our nation, the promise we made to ourselves and to our children, the promise we held out to a world undergoing change at a rate never before experienced. That rate of change hasn't abated through the end of the 20th century and now into the 21st. But the battle between those who seek power, comfort, and dignity for an elite few and those who work to deliver it to everyone, everywhere in the world, has reached a tipping point. We either hear and heed that call to freedom, or we cede our future and our children's future to a darkness that, while we have seen it before, we have never lived in it as deeply as we will. I choose, and I hope, by being here today, it signals that you choose the fight for freedom that our laureates represent. Let their strength build our strength. Let their wisdom-building community inspire our own efforts to build communities of support, encouragement, and creativity. Let their courage energize our courage. We all have it, and we are being called on to use it. We are here to join hands and build the pathway to an understanding of democracy as the world where the many care for each other across differences, and respect and dignity is the birthright for all. In that spirit, I want to thank those who have helped make this day possible. Thank you first to Felicia Wong, who allowed me to be her partner as she led the Roosevelt Institute for 12 years as our president and CEO. Thank you to our new president and CEO, Elizabeth Wilkins. Who took the helm this past February and has fearlessly and beautifully led the Roosevelt Institute into a new era. Thank you to all the staff who brought care and commitment to every element of this event. And I thank all of you, including my many family members who are scattered throughout this audience, for being here today, whether you traveled down the street or all the way from the Netherlands. Let me recognize the Netherlands Ambassador to the United Nations, Lisa Gregoire van Haren, the Dutch Consul General, the Dutch Consul General in New York, Ahmad Dadou, the King's Commissioner in the province of Zeeland, and also who is also the chair of the Roosevelt Foundation in Zeeland, Hugo de Jong. And the whole wonderful Dutch delegation. And of course, I want to thank our esteemed laureates for your unyielding efforts to defend and build these freedoms together. My predecessor as chair of the board was Ambassador William Vanden Heuvel. He established these awards 43 years ago and left us a legacy of passion and commitment. He also left us a wonderful daughter, and our Roosevelt Forward board member, Katrina Vanden Heuvel, a bright light in her own right, will present the freedom of speech and expression citation. Assisting her will be one of my grandchildren, Jay Nalesny.
Thank you, Anne. Anne Roosevelt, remarkable person. Could we pay tribute to Anne again, please? This is a very special year, as Anne has told us. It is a joy to be here with a community of sanity, and as Elizabeth Wilkins pointed out last night, defiant in the face of despair, committed to preserving and expanding the democratic rights of our country. I am here on the 13th day of September 2025 to give the Franklin D. Roosevelt Freedom of Speech Medal to Teen Vogue. Now, you may be saying, Teen Vogue? Follow me. For many journalists, freedom of speech is often envisioned as speaking truth to power. But the team at Teen Vogue understands it's more than just that. It's also about building power. Many young people today, we see it all around us, feel ignored and disempowered in their lives by policymakers, by politicians, by pundits who don't represent their generation, by legacy media, with a few exceptions, that overlooks their struggles, by online spaces incendiary often that surely seek to profit from their attention. Teen Vogue's work shows us a different path. Journalism that isn't just trustworthy and thought-provoking, but that actually listens to young people and their priorities, their issues, their desires, their ideas. So amid that establishment hand-wringing about how to engage young people, Teen Vogue is one of the few outlets doing the actual work, speaking to teens, learning what issues they care about, informing them about domestic and global events that matter to them. As anyone truly committed to imagining and shaping a better future knows, as Roosevelt does day in, day out, our work must always look to the next generation, the young people who will become tomorrow's leaders. We at the Roosevelt Institute, and especially at the Roosevelt Network, always keep this idea in mind. Tomorrow's progressive policymakers, leaders, activists won't spring from the ground fully formed. We need institutions to cultivate opportunities and relationships for a diverse cohort who wouldn't otherwise have the resources or know-how to start careers in this area. In the words of Stacey Abrams, speaking at the 15th anniversary celebration of the Roosevelt Network, a speech, in fact, that was highlighted in Teen Vogue, quote, "The future of our nation does not start in Washington." It may once again, but right now it ain't starting in Washington. In its coverage of student debt to the climate crisis, wages for fast food workers, Teen Vogue connects the dots between issues that matter to young people and the choices that underpin them. When given the opportunity, energized, fearless, bold young people are the backbone of almost every major organizing movement, from Occupy Wall Street, remember that, Black Lives Matter, immigrant rights movements, and I would include the recent movement electoral groundswell of support for Zoran Mamdani running for mayor of this great city. Journalism that takes young people's views seriously empowers them to come together and amplify their impact. So Teen Vogue's incisive, bold reporting offers its readers the essential tools they need to one day, as the magazine's tagline go, conquer, yes, conquer, and save, the world. The Roosevelt Institute is honored to present Teen Vogue with a 2025 Freedom of Speech Medal.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you so very much to the Roosevelt Institute for this incredible, truly incredible honor. Even though it's been a few months since they first notified us of this award, I am completely awed to be here in this room with the other laureates on stage with all of you, still processing the magnitude of this honor, and just very grateful and inspired to be recognized among all of you. I'll begin here by saying that I am accepting this award as the editor-in-chief on behalf of the entire Teen Vogue team, which is an incredibly hardworking group of writers, editors, fact-checkers, social media managers, video producers, analysts, and more. I've been editor-in-chief of Teen Vogue for 4 years. The work to unapologetically represent young people's voices and points of view predates me. It goes back to the magazine's founding in 2003. Teen Vogue really became known for its reporting on hard news and politics in 2016 when Trump was first elected. Since then, we are proud to carry on the legacy of elevating the issues that young people care about the most, from social justice to the climate crisis to criminal justice reform, queer rights, trans rights, and more. Young people constantly inspire me because of their energy, enthusiasm, and yes, impatience for pushing the world forward. This is what we seek to reflect every day in Teen Vogue. I'm a millennial myself, and I'm often asked how I know what the youths are talking about these days. It's easy. They write for us. They comprise our staff. They're our regular contributors, and they interview their peers to authentically highlight what conversations are happening online and off. When I think about what gives me hope during dark times, it is this. It's our audience, our readers, our team. It's a group of people who, even in historically bleak times, seek to illuminate, to learn, to educate, and inform, to empower and to organize, to be in community like this, to choose doing something instead of doing nothing. That is all we can do. That is the only way that this country can move forward. Of course, none of this is easy. We are living at a time of intense polarization, exacerbated by the onset of new technologies and social media connections that we are still understanding the impacts of. There are countless things that make our work difficult. The Teen Vogue team has been targeted and harassed more times than I can count because of our work. Our team is made up of young women, women of color, Black and brown women, trans, non-binary, and queer journalists. For us to simply exist peacefully, online or in person, is a challenge. That is why it is so valuable and meaningful for the Roosevelt Institute to be giving us this award. It's an incredible validation of the hard work and the hard times, and it's a reminder to keep going. I urge you all to support the journalists and the young people in your life and to listen to them. There are two people here in particular who have lived and breathed the stories of news and politics these past many years as editors and chroniclers of history. Our longtime politics director, Allegra Kirkland, and our news and politics editor, Lex McMenamin. While our other editors covering fashion and culture would get a break from the relentless news cycle of the last few years, these two never did. I'm very grateful for your tenacity, your grit, and your determination. Your work makes the world a better place. When I was a young woman studying politics and history in high school, I distinctly remember being so inspired reading about FDR and his New Deal. The bold economic and social reforms and the strength to imagine a better future for much of America seemed so refreshing. My friends and I were serious history nerds. We visited the FDR library in Hyde Park. We took pictures with the statues of Franklin and Eleanor. So this is really special to me. But as I got older, I did learn more about his legacy and the internment of Japanese Americans under his administration during World War II. And I realized the importance of wholly understanding someone's legacy, and that seemingly even progressive leaders can make horrible decisions driven by fear and bigotry. Anne has called it a tragic reminder of what happens when we allow fear and hysteria to trump our values, a grievous mistake and a violation of basic human rights. This is both accurate and I think a great representation of the spirit of Teen Vogue, which is younger people calling out older generations, even their own grandparents, on their BS. In all seriousness, this kind of education is the spirit of Teen Vogue. I'm honored to accept this award from an institute that is working to make our lives better and acknowledges our own ugly history when necessary. It's real, it's honest, and it's what we as journalists are committed to. This group of laureates and your previous winners tells the story of your values, and we are extremely proud now to be a part of that story. Thank you.
Honored guests, please welcome the President and CEO of the Roosevelt Institute, Elizabeth Wilkins.
I promise I will talk more and longer and you'll be sick of me by the end of the day, but for now, I am just very pleased to introduce our next citation reader. Reading the citation today, honoring Reverend Dr. Jacqui Lewis, is author and filmmaker Peter Hedges. Peter will be assisted by Roosevelt Institute board member Rajiv Narayan.
On this, the 13th day of September 2025, the Franklin D. Roosevelt Freedom of Worship Medal is awarded to the Reverend Dr. Jacqui Lewis. What can we do when it seems like the powers that be only seek to divide us, to turn us against each other, to transform us into the worst versions of ourselves? As you wrote in your book, Fierce Love, for some time a perfect storm has been brewing, one that polarizes, amplifying the power of divergent ideologies and reducing our differences to shallow and bigoted categories in which we are vehemently against them. And yet, amid all that, you've made love the center of your message and the guiding principle of your faith. Love for immigrants, refugees, and asylum seekers. Love for trans and gender nonconforming people. Love for people around the world of all faiths, races, and backgrounds. Your message is the same whether it's in your sermons, your books, your podcasts, your weekly newsletter, your TV appearances, your Instagram posts. We honestly don't know how you manage it, all your platforms and all that you do. But the diversity of mediums can't even compare to the diversity of people you've spoken up for. You've built an anti-racist, multi-ethnic congregation that unabashedly affirms that Black lives matter. You've denounced anti-Semitism and Asian hate. You've advocated for women's reproductive rights and elevated trans people's voices, even as the Christian leaders have rallied against them. You've visited the U.S.-Mexico border to protest family separations. You've spoken up about the atrocities in Gaza and the humanitarian crisis in Sudan, urging your audiences to find common cause with people of all faiths around the world. You've never avoided jumping into the fray, whether it's advocating for gun violence prevention, protecting funding for public media, or demanding policies of economic justice, at a time when the loudest voices are often Christian nationalists who aren't exactly practicing what they preach. You've demonstrated that compassionate, faith-based organizing is still possible. Your work offers us hope that one small congregation can build toward a worldwide movement, leaving no one behind, or in your words, the world doesn't get great unless we all get better. The Roosevelt Institute is honored to present the Reverend Dr. Jacqui Lewis with the 2025 Freedom of Worship Medal.
Wow, Peter, who's that girl that you're talking about? Hi, everyone. I'm Jacqui. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm shaking with joy and excitement and the pleasure of being honored in this way. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Anne. Thank you so much, Roosevelt Institute. Thank you so much for the invitation to highlight what good religion can do in a time when we know that religion is the cause of so much harm. At the top of my remarks, I just want to say that I accept this award not for me, but for my community, of which Peter is a part, and also my friends Edna and Heidi, and John and Luli, and I just wonder if you'll stand real quick and let us just say thank you to you. I'm a preacher, so I'm forcing myself to do a short talk, I want to say that I am the pastor at Middle Collegiate Church, which happens to be the Dutch Reformed Church in America. To my Dutch friends, hello, family. Hi. I am not Dutch, but Middle is the oldest continuous Protestant church in North America, dating to 1628, when Dutch folks came to Manhattan, not looking for religious freedom, but to engage in commerce. And they started a church downtown behind the wall, which became Wall Street, at the fort, on top of the fort, where preachers were forced to preach short sermons because they put an egg timer on the table and turned it over when it was time to stop talking. You're not going to do that today. That's great. Middle Church, the Collegiate Church, has a mixed history, as much of religion does. There was a contract with the Lenape, but it really wasn't a contract with the Lenape. So we are the people. I'm saying I am part of a church that took that land, but I'm part of a faith. That's what I want to confess. I'm part of a Christian faith that all over the globe, in the name of God, was unspeakable. We taught the Nazis how to do Nazi. We taught South Africa how to do apartheid. We, the Christian church, tortured Muslims for not being Christian. Do you hear me? We, the Christian church, killed the Jews for not being Christian. I'm so embarrassed sometimes about that. But we are also the church that built hospitals and roads and created colleges and institutions to help heal the world. And religion, at its best, means to bind people together. I'm a Christian universalist who believes that religion can and must bind us together. This is the time when we find the common thread, we find the freedom to be religious in a loving way. All the world's major religions talk about love your neighbor as yourself. Muslims say, don't withhold from anyone that which they need for themselves. Jews say, love the stranger because you were once strangers in a strange land. Christians say, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. The Sikh tradition says, and I love this the best, don't do anything to break anyone's heart. Imagine if religion was in the business not to do anything to break anyone's heart. Imagine if religion freed us to love each other fiercely. I'm talking about the tradition of Ubuntu, which undergirds all of our religions. It's as old as humanity. I am who I am because you are who you are. In Zulu, it's Ubuntu, Ingabuntu, Ingabantu. Do you like the way I learned that to say that to you today? Yeah. I am who I am because you are who you are. To quote Jerry, what's his name, you do complete me. I can't be fully who I am until you're fully who you are, is the way Dr. King said it. Ubuntu undergirds all of religion. I pray fervently in these hot mess times when the global neighborhood is just a wreck, that we will find the freedom, each of us in this room, to love each other hard, to love our neighbor like they're our sister because they are, to love our neighbor because like they're our grandmother because they are. Their health care is my problem. Student loan issues are my problem. Queer rights are my problem, though I am straight. This neighborhood needs all of us to love fiercely, and that's not words, it's action. To stand up for each other, to stand up for the vulnerable, to take our neighbors to the polls with us, to advocate for everyone to have enough. We have enough for everyone to have enough. Don't we have enough for everyone to have enough? That's where you say amen. To take care of the climate because she's our mother. We can heal the world if the religion we feel free to practice is love. Love, period. I'm counting on us, you incredible room of beautiful leaders, to love ourselves so hard that we spill out to love of our neighbor, and we create a family, a global family, in which we all survive and thrive. Thank you so much for this opportunity. God bless you.
Well, reading the citation this morning honoring the brave members of World Central Kitchen's team is my cousin Nancy Roosevelt Ireland, our terrific chair of the trustees, the support organization for the FDR Presidential Library. She will be assisted by Clara Shin, the brilliant chair of Roosevelt Forward.
Good morning. On this, the 13th day of September 2025, the Franklin D. Roosevelt Freedom from Want Medal is awarded to World Central Kitchen. Access to food is one of the most basic and fundamental human rights, and it is currently under attack. As a result of the current administration's dismantling of foreign aid earlier this year, tens of thousands of tons of food allocated for aid programs were left to rot in warehouses. Instead of being provided where needed, food is being used as a political bargaining chip. Nevertheless, World Central Kitchen has heroically persevered in its vital mission to feed the hungry around the globe. For over 15 years, World Central Kitchen has served more than 450 million fresh, nourishing meals worldwide. Their workers have been the first responders after natural disasters and in conflict zones. From Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico to this summer's floods in Texas, from the refugee crisis in Venezuela to the war in Ukraine. In Gaza, World Central Kitchen has delivered 123 million meals and clean water since October 2023. They are the largest food provider in Gaza, distributing 450,000 meals a day, with the goal of distributing 1 million a day. They persist, even after a military strike killed 7 of their aid workers in April 2024. As the climate crisis worsens, as disasters become not only larger but more frequent, as policymakers continue to fail at preventing or responding to global hunger, World Central Kitchen has stepped up to meet an urgent need. They are a fast-acting and nimble organization, often arriving the day of a crisis. By training professional chefs to adapt their recipes to the conditions and communities they find themselves in, World Central Kitchen provides people with not only food, but also comfort and love, reasserting their human dignity in their moment of need. The workers on the ground show all of us what incredible courage looks like, and they inspire us to do more. They face cruelty with kindness, great need with greater service, and prove that it is still possible and essential to forge human connections in our darkest hours. In the words of Chef Jose Andres, who co-founded the organization in the wake of a devastating earthquake in Haiti, everyone is a part of World Central Kitchen. They may just not know it yet. The Roosevelt Institute is honored to present World Central Kitchen with the 2025 Freedom from Want Medal.
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of World Central Kitchens, I want to thank you, the Roosevelt Institution, for the Freedom from Want Award. My team have been working on really strong remarks, but last night at our welcoming dinner, we have an amazing panel talking about very inspiring and also very entertaining topics. One of them got my attention. Came from one of the panelists. I won't say any names. But he talked about that we are living a crisis of hope. Shortly after, one of my colleagues and someone sitting with me at my table asked me, how do you find those hundreds of thousands of people that help you around the world to do what you do? those two questions together got me thinking. So I say I need to go to my hotel and redo the remarks. But let me explain. How do we find them? It's always the same one. It's always the same way. It is with one person. And we always find that one person in the same way, asking three simple questions. Are you okay? Can you help me? What do you know? And then, without hours, we have an army of good that is unstoppable. And that's how, over the last 15 years, organization have cooked hundreds of millions of meals around the world, from Los Angeles to Turkey, from Asheville, North Carolina, to Ukraine, from Texas to Israel. And that is how today we are cooking 400,000 meals a day in Gaza. And that's how also we are going to cook 1 million meals a day in Gaza. And we're going to do that every day till no one is hungry. Jose always reminds us, Chef Jose Andres, always remind us that it's during the wars of humanity that we see the best of humanity. And we can prove it. We can prove it with every single plate of hot meal, because behind each one of those, it is the best of humanity. So no, while there is still one person that will show up, there will not be a crisis of hope. Hope will endure. And that's what all four freedoms has in common. One person showing up. To show us the way, because freedom is something that we build together. Thank you to the Roosevelt Institute, to everyone here today, for showing up, for believing and supporting on those that show up, and for building freedom together. Before I finish, I would like to, my friend Jose asked me to share a video with all of you in which he shared why do we show up and the value of a hot meal for those that don't have it. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Chef Jose Andres, founder of World Central Kitchen. World Central Kitchen this year celebrates already 15 years. And quite frankly, I cannot really believe it. That's how long we've been showing up, cooking and serving meals after disasters. More than 500 million meals, each one cook and serve with care, dignified food. And we do this in communities in America and around the world. When an earthquake strikes, when a volcano blows, when war starts, in those moments, people need more than calories. They need comfort. They need to know that they are not alone. In the same way, doctors care for the sick. In the same way, first responders bring people to safety. Chefs brings the communities together to cook for those who need it most. When we bring food, what we do is a call for humanity and becomes a call for hope. At World Central Kitchen, we have a saying that everyone is part of World Central Kitchen. They just don't know it yet. So thank you, my friends, for joining us and believing in the power of food to change the world.
All right, reading the citation today, honoring the Center for Victims of Torture, is Vice Chair of the Roosevelt Institute Board, Darla Cashin. Darla will be assisted by Roosevelt Library Trustee John Q. Barrett.
Well, I think I need to take a deep breath after that one. And I need to find my page. On this day, the 13th of September, 2025, the Franklin D. Roosevelt Freedom from Fear Medal is awarded to the Center for the Victims of Torture. From asylum seekers at our southern border to refugees in Africa and the Middle East, survivors of organized violence need support to repair their lives and to heal their traumas. As one client of CVT said, I came to the Center for the Victims of Torture in a million pieces, and CVT fixed me to one body. You saved my life. The Center for the Victims of Torture works tirelessly to heal people broken by a broken system. By showing up for survivors and human rights defenders around the world, by providing clinical care to torture and trauma survivors, by researching and evaluating rehabilitative care and treatment approaches, by advocating for public policy change to fund treatment programs and protect human rights more broadly. One of our namesakes, Eleanor Roosevelt, worked to codify foundational human rights laws, including the prohibition of torture and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights at the United Nations. When confronted by the atrocities of the Holocaust, Eleanor remarked, "How one lives through such torture is only explained by the fact that within each of us there is an extraordinary tenacity which clings to life. And if we have any hope held out to us, we will struggle to start again." She called on her fellow Americans to take up the joint responsibility to help survivors return to a life of dignity. For the past 40 years, the Center for the Victims of Torture has shouldered that responsibility and it will continue to do so in spite of today's fierce headwinds. As our national conversation on immigration has increasingly dehumanized and villainized asylum seekers fleeing atrocities, CVT work embodies our country's aspirational self, welcoming those who are most vulnerable and helping them begin anew. On a global scale, the Trump administration's sweeping cuts to humanitarian aid earlier this year have devastated US-based human rights organizations and the people they serve. Under the pretense of government efficiency, Trump officials halted funding for USAID and issued stop orders for organizations that rely on federal grants. The impact was immediate. Aid workers were stranded abroad, and care for patients came to an abrupt halt, right in the middle of treatment. The cuts suspended 3/4 of CVT's international work, forcing CVT to pause programs in Ethiopia, Jordan, and Uganda, as well as support for human rights defenders worldwide. A 14-year-old girl in Ethiopia asked her counselor, "Are you leaving me alone like the others? Am I going back to how I was before I met you?" CVT has been undaunted in its response, renewing its focus on political organizing, securing new funding streams, and joining a lawsuit challenging the US government's unconstitutional foreign aid cuts. In your words, Simon, presidents come and go, we hope, but we will keep doing our work until the last torturer faces justice and the last refugee camp is empty. The Roosevelt Institute is honored to present the Center for the Victims of Torture with the 2025 Freedom from Fear Medal.
Thank you, and wow, I'm a bit emotional. It's been an emotional morning with all of that. On behalf of everybody at the Center for Victims of Torture, our staff, our partners, and most importantly, the 24,000 resilient survivors and family members who we served last year, I'm deeply honored to accept the 2025 Freedom from Fear Award. President Roosevelt spoke of those 4 essential human freedoms that we're hearing about. These are freedoms that transcend borders. These are ideas that can penetrate through the cracks into the walls of the darkest prison and reach hearts and minds that are ensnared in barbed wire. In 1941, in the midst of World War and rising authoritarianism around the world, the idea of freedom from fear was a clarion call for action. Today, this award affirms that call and the work CVT has undertaken for 4 decades to restore dignity, healing, and hope to those who have survived the unimaginable and endured the unthinkable. Torture is meant to silence, to erase identity, to instill a fear so deep that it permeates across generations. But we stand in defiance of that fear. Every day, survivors walk through the doors of our clinics around the world. We bear witness to their courage, and through therapy, advocacy, and global partnerships, we help transform trauma into strength. This award is a powerful recognition of our work, but also of the unwavering truth that torture has no place in any society, anywhere, under any circumstances. As you just heard, this has been an excruciatingly difficult year for CVT. We were hit very hard by President Trump's foreign aid funding cuts and various executive orders. We had to close many of our life-saving programs around the world, and we had to watch as the whole humanitarian sector was decimated. Many of our beloved colleagues lost their jobs, and I fear some of our abandoned clients lost their lives. And every day we see the tears and the human consequences of the current administration's decision to turn its back on the world, to malign those who respond to the humanitarian impulse, to replace compassion with performative cruelty. But CVT will not step back, submit, or be silent. We will continue to stand with refugees, torture survivors, and human rights defenders. We are deeply bruised, but we remain unbroken and unbowed. Our doors remain open, and we continue to challenge the current administration in the Supreme Court. To the Roosevelt Institute, thank you for the recognition and for amplifying all these resonant and vital voices today. To our allies and our supporters, thank you for walking beside us. This is also live streamed, so I want to speak directly to the survivors and the human rights defenders who entrust us with their stories and allow us into their lives. You are the heart of everything that we do. Your courage helps illuminate the path forward, because tomorrow does not belong to the war criminals, the torturers, and those with authoritarian pretensions. The future belongs to you. Thank you.
What a great honor to join you at the For Freedom Awards ceremony here in New York to celebrate the 2025 For Freedom Awards laureates. Last year, we commemorated the 80th anniversary of our liberation at the end of World War II in the Netherlands. Millions of Americans came to Europe to fight for our freedom. In his For Freedom speech in 1941, President Franklin Roosevelt had given them a purpose, not only to fight against something, against tyranny and oppression, but to fight for something, a world based on 4 fundamental freedoms, a life in dignity for everyone, everywhere in the world. And this was a message of hope and responsibility, a message that motivated and set in motion millions of people all over the world, and a message that brought freedom to Europe. Marking this great and unique moment in our history, a group of 200 youth from over 50 countries gathered in the capital of Zeeland and concluded the Treaty of Middelburg in May this year. And the treaty places our 4 fundamental freedoms in the context of today's challenges, and they are many. And the treaty is first and foremost a call on governments, international organizations, and on all of us to continue to protect and promote our 4 freedoms in our laws, in our policies, cooperation, and in our daily lives. And I'm proud that we can hand out the text of the treaty, its goals and its action points to you today. And I hope it will inspire you and all of us to take action and to make a difference. I congratulate and thank the esteemed 2025 laureates who show us that we can make a difference and who serve as such great examples to us. And I'm happy to introduce Tobias Rotenberger, the youth advisor to the Roosevelt Foundation, and Jacqui, who share their views on the 4 freedoms with us in this video. And I wish everyone a beautiful ceremony. Thank you.
When I think about what is so interesting about the Treaty of Middelburg and the work the Roosevelt Foundation does, you have a city that's tiny, that's like as big as Poughkeepsie, and 200 students from 50 countries around the world are gathering here to write a document that reflects the 4 freedoms and to basically highlight that there are young people in the world who care about issues that have been so important in the post-World War II era, and want to make that really clear.
I think one of the frustrating things as a young person in the policy world, as well as movements, is your voice not being taken seriously. I think often when you get into the rooms of policy, you start to get removed from being on the ground. I think that's an advantage of having youth in policymaking and in youth movements, being on the ground, being with people. And I think that's the unique perspective that youth bring in, not only just policy, but youth movements, and that drive that reinvigorates the need for change and progress. One of the important lessons I learned from the Roosevelt legacy that I applied to my advocacy and learning is, no matter who you are, you should be guaranteed a basic safety net and basic care and basic needs. And I think that is policymaking through empathy. And I think that's what I learned and took away from a lot of the efforts that the Roosevelt legacy has pushed and still advocates for, and what I hope to do it in my work.
I think one part of the Roosevelt's legacy that I carry with me is that things don't have to be perfect to be important and long-lasting. The Roosevelt legacy isn't perfect, but the things they've managed to achieve are still so meaningful and have created such lasting change. And I think that's a lesson for all of us, that you can do really, really good things even if you don't manage to do it perfectly.
Thank you, Hugo and Tobias and Isha, who I think slipped out the back door when he came on the screen. Well, reading the citation honoring Darren Walker, the president of the Ford Foundation, is our forever partner In bold moves, inspired collaborations, and passionate commitment, Felicia Wong. Felicia will be assisted by my niece and Roosevelt Institute board member, Luli Haddad.
On this, the 13th day of September 2025, the Franklin D. Roosevelt Freedom Medal is awarded to Darren Walker. It's hard for me to summarize your life story, Darren, better than you have already done yourself. In your new book, The Idea of America, you write, I have lived on both sides of American inequality. I know all too personally that the distance between the two has never been greater. On one side of that divide, you grew up in rural Texas, a gay Black son of a single mother. You were in the very first class of Head Start, a federal preschool program for low-income families. You were a Pell Grant recipient, and you exclusively attended public schools from kindergarten through law school. And on the other side of that divide, you have followed your curiosity and your passions, building an illustrious career in finance, in community development, and eventually philanthropy. Your dozen years as the president of the Ford Foundation have been transformative for the institution and for many of us in this room. I remember the first time I met you. I was new at Roosevelt, and we were struggling. You were very honest. Felicia, get more clear. Make a choice about where you want to take Roosevelt. Pick a direction and go. I followed your advice. I tried to. And you personally approved the first major grant to Roosevelt under my tenure, giving me the confidence and the courage to think that we at Roosevelt could make the world and the economy more secure and more just. You brought us into Ford's foundation-wide focus on inequality, and you personally moved Ford to take on the growth of inequality in the world, not just the economy, but also in education, in politics, in culture and creative expression. You made this Ford's mission, and your strategic use of Ford's considerable financial strength has brought many organizations more certainty and more clarity. You also made central Ford's fight for justice, and in so doing, you made the Ford Foundation itself more beautiful. It is just amazing to be in the new space that you had the vision to create, the new Ford building. It is so breathtaking, it is so inspirational, and it is filled with art that moves all of us, and I know moves you. As you said at the beginning of your Ford presidency, our most important job is to work ourselves out of that job, to rail against injustice until there is justice, to fight against inequality until there is equality. At this moment in history, it feels that that job is really hard and far from done. But all of us are thankful for your vision and for reminding us that we must always keep the very long arc in mind, especially when it is most difficult to do so. The Roosevelt Institute is honored to present you with the 2025 Freedom Medal.
Well, now it's good afternoon. What an honor. What a joy. What an occasion. Thank you, Felicia, for your generous introduction. To my dear Luli, thank you for this beautiful medal. To Anna, thank you for your brave and courageous stewardship of this incredible, incredible legacy. And I want to thank the Roosevelt Institute for its steadfast commitment to walking what FDR called the path of social justice, the path of faith, the path of hope, and the path of love toward one another. This institution has long been a beacon of moral clarity and courage, as has your sister institution, the FDR Presidential Library and Museum. And I am so honored to share the dais with this extraordinary group of people who I've admired and learned from over many years. So today, we are here in part to rededicate ourselves to President Roosevelt's vision for a world. As he said to Congress on January 6, 1941, founded upon 4 essential human freedoms. But I, today, am reflecting on something he said to the American people just 8 days before that important address. During a radio address, one of his famous fireside chats, in which he called on America to become the great arsenal of democracy. He said then, and I quote, "Never before since Jamestown and Plymouth Rock has our American civilization been in such danger as now." Today, once again, we are charged with the defense of freedom in an hour of maximum danger. And this is not the first time in our history that the threat is from an axis within, not without. And so we, our generation, we have our own rendezvous with destiny. In short, we must comprise a new arsenal of democracy, not with weapons that destroy, but with the shared values that have always united us across our myriad difference, the democratic values with which we must commit to rebuilding. And of course, foremost of these values is freedom. The British philosopher Hosea Berlin taught us that there are 2 kinds of freedom. First, the freedom from. This is the freedom from coercion or persecution. And second, the freedom to. This is the freedom to live with dignity, to realize our human potential. But both categories of freedom are only given meaning with individual, collective, and mutual obligation. So I believe that with freedom comes responsibility. As I see it, with the freedom of speech comes a responsibility to listen with humility and curiosity and empathy, with open minds and open hearts. And with the freedom of belief comes a responsibility to tolerate and accept, to embrace one another's shared common humanity, across the breach, to heal the breach, even and when especially we may disagree. And with freedom from want comes the responsibility to serve, not merely to give back, but to interrogate our own complicity in the problems we say we want to solve that might actually demand of us that we ask the harder question, what am I willing to give up? This is the responsibility to push ourselves beyond generosity and onward towards justice. And with the freedom from fear comes the responsibility to act boldly, courageously, in service of equal representation, equal rights, and equal justice for everyone in our American community. So yes, never before has the American project, the idea of America, been in such danger as now. He was right, once again, not since Jamestown and Plymouth Rock. So let us recommit ourselves together, not just to extol the freedoms we cherish, but to embrace our responsibilities to make them real. In service of these responsibilities and furtherance of the American values and the truths we still hold self-evident, I humbly and with great honor accept this award and recognition. Thank you very much.
All right, y'all, I am the last thing standing between you and lunch. I want to take a moment to recognize one more time our laureates, both for the words that they shared with us today and the work that they do through their lives that inspires us every day. Thank you. It has been striking to me, sitting and listening today to us talk about and listen to the words of our laureates, how each one of them, in their own way, has faced the challenges of our age and has fought directly with the feelings of overwhelm and despair, and has chosen to meet those feelings with hope, with defiance, and with courage. I suspect that everyone in this room has experienced these same kinds of feelings of overwhelm and despair, and I wanted to take a minute to talk about one of my own and how I think we can take the inspiration from today into our own lives and hold it dear and close for all of those moments. I am a native Washingtonian, very proud. And so the last month has been extraordinarily difficult for me. Watching the occupation of my beloved city as only one of the last in a long line of actions which tells the folks who live there with me that we are less than, that we do not deserve our full freedom and autonomy. And in particular, I have two small children. Maya is 6, Jackson is 8. They were supposed to be here today, but we had a tantrum about a birthday party and a little bit of a stomach bug, so maybe next time. And they both go to our neighborhood elementary school in Mount Pleasant. And half of their classmates speak English as a second language. And as the first day of school approached, I worried about how many of their classmates were going to be afraid to come to school and how many of their parents were going to want to keep them home. But I should not have been afraid. On the first day of school, our whole neighborhood came out to Bancroft Elementary School with signs, with music makers, with smiles, and with love to welcome all of the children ages 3 to 10 to a place that they could call theirs. A place of learning, a place of joy, a place of growing, where there was no room for fear. That, I think, is what community gives us. It gives us pride and joy in who we are. It gives us, as Simon said, defiance against fear. It gives us the courage to think and act boldly, and it gives us the courage to dream as big as the moment demands. As Javier said to us, we build our freedom together. That is in large part what this legacy that we are here to celebrate today gives us. What Eleanor and Roosevelt did, they faced big, scary crises, from rising authoritarianism to existential questions about our democracy and our economy. They met their moment with energy and with urgency and with vision. I generally hate having to sit in a ceremony on stage rather than in the audience, but one huge benefit that it had for me today is that I just spent the last hour and a half looking at all of you and remembering that there are a whole host of people gathered around the work that our laureates do, gathered around the Roosevelt legacy and the ideals that they stand for. My hope is that you too got to experience some of that feeling of community today. That we leave with a renewed sense of defiance, of courage, of hope, and most of all, a renewed sense of togetherness in this moment that can give us the strength to move forward together. Thank you very much for coming to celebrate our laureates with us today. We have lunch prepared upstairs. The only thing that I ask is that everyone remains seated as the laureates make their way out. And then let's, to a true celebration, have some food and break bread together. Thank you very much.